Yes, good morning. Today we are talking about plate tectonic. Plate tectonic is really a discussions that largely focus on the Earth lithosphere. Remember, we have talked about many other spheres, but today we would start largely talking with the lithosphere. So now, this is the world today. The world is divided into several continents: North America, South America, Africa, Asia, Europe, Australia, and the likes. And the world is also made up of vast oceans. You have the Atlantic Ocean here, you have the Indian Ocean here, you have the Pacific Ocean, and the likes. So now that is the world today. However, that is not how the world looked like some years back. So now there is a theory called continental drift. And that theory argues that continents are not fixed but are mobile. It basically means continents or land masses are moving. That is a, an idea that was brought on board by a German geologist, Alfred Wegener, who in 1915 published a book titled The Origins of the Ocean and the Continent. In that book, Wegener came up with this idea of a former supercontinent that once existed. That supercontinent was referred to as Pangaea. Now, Wegener collected huge amount of evidence to be able to advance his theory. One of it, he looked at the feet of continents. There are some continents that fit like a puzzle. He also looked at the location of glaciers or glacier remains. He looked at fossil evidence. He looked at rock type and structure similarities. And he also looked at paleoclimatic evidence, evidence that were left behind by past climatic conditions. So that is as a result Alfred Wegener's idea of a supercontinent whereby all these major continents were locked on one major landmass called Pangaea, such that, for example, South America and Africa were connected together. So it's India, Australia, and the likes. Now, a lot of people did not believe this guy. They said, sure, this guy must be insane. How could he possibly think that the world, which is made up of so many different continents, could have been at one point connected together? So a lot of people did not believe him at first. They thought this guy was ridiculous. Uh, Part of the major reason why his idea could not prosper is because he could not explain the mechanism under which continents eventually drifted away from each other and formed independent continents such as Africa, South America, Asia, and the likes. So after Wegener's death in 1930, just at the age of 50, his ideas started fading away because there was no one to advocate for it. So now let's look at why wasn't this idea accepted. Number one, Wegener had no mechanism to explain as to why continents move. In return, Wegener suggested that continents plowed through the ocean crust much like an icebreaker cutting through ice. He invoked a rotational or centrifugal force. However, such ideas were easily discredited, so was his theory. So at the end of the day, everybody basically decided not to believe what this guy had to say. Now, later on, a South African geologist Alex du Toit picked up Wegener's idea and gathered more geological and paleontological evidence from Southern Africa and Southern America. And out of that, he published a book titled Our Wandering Continent in 1937. And in that book, Du Toit contrasted the glacier deposits of Gondwana with coal deposits of the same age found in the continent of the Northern Hemisphere. And he resolved the paradox by moving Gondwana continent to South Pole and the broad coal bearing region at equator. So, as a result, using that, Du Toit was able to pick up from where Wegener left. So now that means a lot of evidence has since surfaced to be able to indicate that the idea of a supercontinent Pangaea once existed. So one of the most important is the feet of the continent. There is close resemblance between coastline of continents on opposite side of the Atlantic Ocean. For example, the western coast of or the eastern coast of South America seems to quite fit well with the eastern or with the western coast of Africa. Rather, you bring them together, they fit like a puzzle. Uh, Critics, however, argues that that is something that resulted from erosional and depositional processes. However, it was also found out that the best fit between continents occur at a depth of some 200 kilometers, right? At a depth of some 200 of some 2 kilometers, that is where these two continents best fit. Let us look at just an example of how Madagascar is a small island off the western coast of southern Africa, just after Mozambique. Madagascar, look at how Madagascar fit quite well on the western coast of Africa. Could this be a coincidence, or could it be that this was once part of Africa, then eventually started breaking away? And you must understand there is not only Madagascar, but there are other small islands, the likes of Seychelles, the likes of Comoros, the likes of Mauritius. All these small islands were left over when the Indian, when India basically as a country started broke off from Africa. So it basically means this drifted away from here, and these were small islands that were left in between. So we would continue again with our discussions when we talk about glacier evidence so that we can interrogate this topic in more details. Thank you.